Then I'm going to just introduce Visionaire, who is anonymous, so he put his mask back on his face. So we're starting the entertainment block here. We're going to be going into Web3 music, Web3 and film, or decentralized film as we're calling it. Visionaire, who's just coming up to the stage now, is someone that I met through my colleague Lisa. He is incredibly dialed into Web3 creators, particularly in the BIPOC community. He is a champion for a lot of women. He tirelessly gives of his time and his you're just very generous with your time and your energy and your creativity. That's why I poached him, and he's now working on a project with us. But in addition to that, he's just a very inspiring community builder in the Web3 space. So I'm going to invite you up here to introduce your guest, who I'm very excited to hear speak as well.
Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate that. And yeah, in short, I just want to say, I guess, on behalf of myself, that a lot of the work that I do is it's really rooted in this idea of reciprocity, and building out this loop. I think, giving and receiving are one and the same thing. When you give to people, you are receiving, energy from the universe. You're receiving energy from other people that see that work and are willing to give you an opportunity. So yeah, it's a cycle, it's a loop, and I'm just trying to do my part. And the person we're about to speak to is one of the biggest proponents to that loop, this concept of giving and receiving, of creating to heal and healing to create. She is not only a matriarch, but a literal maven, a pillar of the NFT community, especially as it relates to music. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the head of community at ZORA, one of the highest selling NFT music artists in the space, and a pioneer for all creative artists in the space, Latasha.
You're gonna have to take off that mask, V.
It's not dark outside. It's not dark outside.
Thank you for that intro, V. I'm really good. I feel really amazed at how beautiful this is coming out. This is my first favorite South by Southwest after attending 8 of them. So this is absolutely my favorite, and I think it's highly because of this new community that we're growing.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm very interested to talk to you about. I think this is my first time in Austin, my first time at South by Southwest. I'm loving it so far. It feels a lot like LA.
Yeah.
But colder.
Way colder. This is
colder.
a lie, though. I don't know what this cold is about. Usually South by is 90 degrees and up.
Yeah.
I'm terrified right now, but we'll be all right.
But we move. So yeah, I wanted to preface the conversation for everybody who was here earlier. I really talked about the concept of individuals in these very pivotal positions and what it's like to be that person. So as head of community at ZORA and as an artist, it sounds like that's a lot of juggling, a lot of time management, and also, to be quite honest, a lot of stress, navigating. So I'm curious as to, sort of the top 3 responsibilities that you have at ZORA, and what it requires of you as a person on a regular basis, on that Monday through Friday.
Thank you for that question, because now I'm trying to rack up all the things and prioritize what is what. But as the head of community programming at ZORA, I do onboarding every other week. So I teach artists about what Web3 is, teach them how to mint, get them their wallets through Zoratopia, which is now an educational platform, but in real life events where people could come and perform, while out, get to meet each other, connect. And it's been really powerful. We've onboarded over 500 artists now at this point, and I'm just so grateful for that. Along with that, I do a lot of programming. Some of the amazing, events that we're throwing here is all me, pretty much. So if you come to Zoratopia tomorrow, we're having a really fly kickback. It's going to be a full barbecue with Vic Mensa, myself, Andre Power, and all these crazy performers. So that's another thing that I do. And then I just make sure that the culture is there. My work a lot is making sure that the marginalized communities are getting some sort of say in what is happening in Web3, making sure that Black, brown people are always in the front rows of things and pushing forward with that.
For sure. And I'd like to just give her, we're going to give her a couple rounds of applause, but let's give her the first of many rounds of applause right now for that work. Transformative. I definitely want to speak to, your work in creating safe space for, for people of color, or as as Lady Fee has been telling me to say, people of culture. Every time I say that, she slaps my hand on the phone. But so I'm very curious from your perspective. There are, without sort of like beating around the bush, there are definitely two communities in Web3. There is a very strong, diverse, Black and brown community. And then there's a separate sort of like, I would say more privileged community. And it is also multicultural, but it definitely is white male led. For you as a Black woman, what is it like existing at that intersection where your collectors are some of those people, right? Your biggest supporters, right? The people who are sponsoring some of these events are some of these people. And there are things that need to be communicated across these two communities. And you stand at the center, especially as head of community. What is that positioning like? What is that stress like, and how are you navigating that as an individual?
It's a lot of mansplaining often. All the men here are like, oh no.
Talk about it.
Nah, it is honestly a lot of mansplaining, and then me having to just be like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. But oftentimes, I think I'm lucky enough to know my boundaries and know who I want to work with and who I don't want to work with, right? And I know the energy and the types of vibrations of people and what people really care about. Oftentimes I go straight for the jugular every time. I'm like, Black History Month, and everybody's hitting me up for an interview, and I'm like, okay, how many artists did you interview this year that is Black or brown? How many people have you been highlighting every day, that is Black or brown? And those are my questions. I want to really know, because if you haven't shown up and you're only showing up for these significant, diversity metrics in your worlds, I don't really want to work with you. I want people that really are showing up. I want to see people show up properly and fully and give all the abundance to, the culture. Because a lot of times what's happening within crypto, we're noticing, especially now that we're getting all these diverse types of art coming into the space and stuff, we're missing out on that story of all the brown and Black people who are coming in with something amazing. And then all the world is hearing about is Bored Apes. And I'm like, no beef to you guys if you have a Bored Ape or whatever. But I'm like, there's so much more happening in the space. And we have to push forward and make sure that those folks who are offering the diversity is really at the forefront every time.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point about sort of like, at the end of the day, what really permeates, right? And the culture is sort of like this, almost like this sub-layer that I feel is not really poking holes in sort of like not only, perception within the Web3 community, but also public perception, right? And I think public perception and also the some of the economic barriers that exist, especially for Black and brown communities, is what is deterring, specifically our communities from jumping in. So I'd love for you to talk a bit about your work at ZORA to create exposure and to create a semblance of attention on the actual culture and the creators of culture.
You know, I do think we're poking holes. I do think that we're starting to show through. I think, you know, when especially musicians are walking into this space and we see people like Iman Europe or Sassy Black or myself, you know, have the world be like, oh man, you guys are really doing this NFT thing and it's working out for you. I think that's saying something. So my work oftentimes at ZORA is like, making sure that people know what's up. I'm just big on just, you know, anytime I have anyone hitting me up from any space or want to collaborate, I'm like, these are the artists that you guys should be checking out. And for the most part, they're women, black, brown, and folks who are diverse thought leaders. I think that's really important too. If you're coming in with the same kind of approaches or, you know, visions of what this space should be, I don't really want to highlight you right now. And also the LGBTQI community, I really believe that the non-binary community and trans community and Web3 bring some of the most amazing art I've ever seen and deserves so much more and highlights so much more of what this space should be. So yeah, I create like exhibitions. I've been creating events for performers and musicians to perform. We also create like art sessions, and we also do like NFT fan photo shoots so that we're documenting the history and making sure that everybody's face is seen. And we have a website coming out very soon called Zoratopia so that you could see all the artists that, you know, have been a part of this growth. And I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, that's super fire, and I'm excited to hear about this website because there's some wonderful photographs that I believe I was telling, you know, some folks who came with me to South by and to Zoratopia that, like, you know, this is Black history, literally. Like you're in the midst of, like, you know, like being with, you know, with Martin and Malcolm, like at that time, you know, in an organizing session, in a strategy session, at a birthday party. Like this is like the closest equivalent that you're gonna get to that at the frontier of this, and that's a perfect segue because I would love for you to talk about the genesis of Zoratopia and just where that came from within your spirit to create this space and sort of like some of the behind the scenes of like what led to it being this space. Like one of the taglines for it is like, they wouldn't book us on a stage, so we made our own. So I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, so I've been an artist and musician for about 10 years. I have, you know, performed and opened for like Kanye West, Q-Tip, Big Sean, all these crazy names. And I dealt with a lot of industries trying to shape me into something that I didn't want to become. You know, labels would tell me that, you know, I needed to lose weight or, you know, I wasn't, you know, the type of rapper they were looking for, et cetera, et cetera. And it really plummeted me. I went into deep depression. I lost my hope for art and myself. And, you know, it wasn't until a woman actually came into my life and she really just inspired me to review my perspectives and kind of challenged me to see it more as a challenge instead of this hard problem that will never change. It was always temporary now. Like I just knew like I could make a difference if I just keep going. So I just kept going, and then I found this NFT thing. And I started working for ZORA in June of 2021, and I saw that there were so many artists who was interested in Web3 but had no one to speak to about it. Really felt like they only went on YouTube and the financial advice seemed like the only thing that they were getting, but not like a human connection. And so, you know, people would DM me and be like, hey, can you do these one-on-ones with me? And that was starting to get flooded. It was like, I was getting like 300 DMs a day on just, can we do a one-on-one? And I was like, you know, I can't do one-on-ones with everybody, but maybe I should start these Zoom calls and just throw like these Zoom calls where everybody could pull up and I'll answer all the questions I can answer and teach you guys about Web3. And so it started like that. And our first one had about 40 people. And I taught them how to get their MetaMask wallet. I showed them how to mint. And then they just kept coming. And it was like, it started in September of 2021. And then it just kept growing. These Zoom calls got like it went from 40 to 60 to 100, then almost 200 people showing up for these Zoom calls. And I was like, okay, this is scary. And the questions were real deep questions. Sometimes we have these real conversations with artists who are like, yo, I'm not paying my rent right now, and this feels like my only hope. And then like the community in the chat will show up for that artist. They'll pay each other's gas fees. They'll care about what's going on with each other. And that's how this whole thing built. And I just, shout out to Day, because she's a Zoratopian, and Jamie over there is a Zoratopian as well. It has really evolved into its own kind of world. And I'm so grateful, because I didn't think it was going to become this. I was just trying to teach. I just wanted people to feel hope again. And I know what it feels like to not feel hope, to feel hopeless in what you love to do. And so many of the artists now feel hope, feel like there's an opportunity for them to be themselves, to be at their fullest extent as an artist. And I'm witnessing that through Zoratopia. And now, we've onboarded all these artists, and they pulling up and doing shows at South by Southwest. Some of them, this is their first show ever at South by. And they're like, if it wasn't for crypto, if it wasn't for getting into NFTs, if it wasn't for ZORA, they would have never been here. So I'm just happy about that.
Yeah, and this is the second of 3 rounds of applause. So, yes, she deserves. There's something interesting in what you're talking about, this concept of hope, and something I think you do very well, which is, to me, I think is probably your greatest value proposition, is that you reward people's faith. So for how many people in here are artists as well as builders of some sort in Web3? There's some folks in here. So you know how difficult it is in and of itself to just create something and see it through to the end, to build it, to produce it, right, to workshop it, to take it down, put it back up again, and then actually, go to mint. So now throw on a full-time job on top of that, where you have to help other people through that process, and you have to actually help run a business. So there's a couple of things there that I think you sort of you kind of put them all together, and you do it through one medium, right? Your music is a part of this medium, right? Your obviously public speaking and Zoratopia and being, a public facing individual is part of that. But the other part is your spirituality, right? And this sort of this North Star in your sky that's guiding you. If you could put that into words, what is that North Star for you as an artist and as a builder in Web3?
So I found out that my ancestors are the Dahomey tribe. I don't know if you guys know about Dahomeys, but Dahomeys were built by 4,000 women armies. So the army was just full of women. And I grew up in a home full of women. And that was my first form of community, right? And then becoming a rapper and an artist so accidentally. I went to Wesleyan University. I wasn't going to do this rap thing ever, but it just happened. Community kept coming up, especially growing up in Brooklyn. It was all you had was each other. If nobody else had you, all you had was each other. And so I think my North Star is knowing that I always got people behind me. I always have spirits behind me. I always have somebody behind me supporting me and pushing me through. And so I know I have to do this because this is our future. To be an artist is building the world. And so I want to make sure that I am constantly giving that. I think being an artist is being connected to your highest God or your highest form, your highest power, whatever you want to call it. And what else would you want to be in life, than someone who's building something for this world and making it better for the future, And so, yeah, and there's days where I've asked myself, why am I still doing this? But I'm always reminded by the smiles and the joy and the laughter and the feelings people get when they get to be themselves. That's what pushes me. You know, when I know people is just like, man, I never could do this anywhere else. This is amazing. That's what makes me feel good because I've always wanted that for myself, you know? And I think my spiritual North Star is just, you know, fighting for joy, advocating for joy. And I believe that, you know, especially marginalized communities deserve joy. I think when we breathe, we are advocating for life. And when we're laughing, we're fighting for something way bigger, you know, and just being. I hope that all made sense. That was like such a lot of.
It made sense to me. This is 3 of 3. Everybody give her a round of applause. Yes, yes.
Baby.
And yeah, so my final question, this is a prompt I'm giving it to all my panelists because I know we got to keep it moving. I asked for one affirmation that you want to speak into the Web3 community. It can be for yourself, for what you're doing with ZORA. It can be for the community as a you know, as a whole. Just one affirmation.
Damn, there's so many. My favorite affirmation that I write every day is all is well and is unfolding as it should. All is well and is living in its highest good. I write that every day, and that keeps me in my right mind. Even when ETH is low. Even when ETH is low.
We love it. We love it. Is there anything that you want to plug? I know you got some things happening on Monday and beyond. So give us some.
Zoratopia's futuristic kickback. It's at Victory Grill, which is a historical Black landmark in Austin, Texas. Artists like Billie Holiday, Louis Armstrong have performed there. And we're going to be performing there with myself, Vic Mensa, Andre Power from Selection. It's a free barbecue, free open bar, and good vibes all night from 5 to 1 a.m. So come out and support the beautiful artists that are going to be performing. We'll also have like Iman Europe, Maroof, Greg Newman. Some of my favorites will just be in the building. Visionaire will be there. And then Zoratopia is back in action starting in April. So if you need some schooling on Web3, I'm here to support you.
Yes, yes. I'm closing this out by saying I love you so dearly.
I love you so much. Thank you.
I wish you peace.
I'm in good peace. I feel good.
Yes, I wish you prosperity.
You too.
I wish you happiness.
You too.
And I also wish for the price of ETH to rise.
To rise.
But besides the point.
Just a little bit. That's collective though. So everybody put your money in the ETH so we can all come up.
No, thanks. But no, for real, you already have gone down in history, but you will be remembered as an architect of the space, and we are so grateful to have you.
I'm grateful for you and all of you guys. Thank you so much.
We love you. We love
Love
you.
you too.